My intention in this life is to do my work, to fulfill my purpose while enjoying it and having fun.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Peter O. Estevez Show. This is your host, Peter O. Estevez. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And today we have with us Valeria Aloe. Valeria is a speaker. She's an educator. She's a consultant. Valeria is also an expert in the Hispanic market and success mindset trends. She's a founder of Abundancia Co-Science, a bilingual training, speaking, coaching, and consulting platform that helps Hispanics in the U.S. and Latin America overcome their cultural, personal barriers, and growth. More importantly, Valeria is the author of a recently released book, The Uncolonized Latinas, Transforming Our Mindsets and Rising Together. Hello, Valeria, and welcome to the Peter O. Estevez Show.
Hi, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my honor and a pleasure. And you know, you do a lot of the work that I am extremely passionate about. That is for me, is I do it from the philanthropic side of it. I do it from the passionate part of my life, being able to talk about the challenges that I overcame as a young boy, and that many Latinos overcome as they come to America. Many immigrants, but more primarily Latinos. Now, I want to dive deep into that because it's a topic that we are both very passionate about. But let's talk about your book first, because you released this book. Congratulations, and also happy birthday to your husband that is 50 years old today.
Thank you, Peter. So my book, I'm living and breathing this book. This book was an idea and an intention that I had a year ago. And you know how when you set your intention and you take a step towards the direction of your intention, the energy moves and starts to manifest. So essentially, I ended up joining a program for first-time authors through Georgetown University. And in 9 months, I wrote my book. Wow. Now, this book, it's been a journey because I interviewed 55 Latinas and I worked with 4 Latino PhDs to gather the insights, the information, to do the research, and it compiles 80 research reports. So it's very in-depth, and it takes a deep look into our culture, and particularly the Hispanic limiting beliefs that we carry in our mindset.
Wow. You said a mouthful right there. But let's talk about your journey. And I'm going to get into the mindset. I'm going to get into the limited beliefs because, as you know, it's something that is very dear to my heart. But I want to talk a little bit about your journey, because when we talk about Georgetown University, we talked about writing a book in 9 months. We talk about intentions, and we talk about a vocabulary that many of our audience may have heard, but it does not resonate with them. Okay. Yes. Because of our own belief system, right? So let's talk a little bit about your journey into the States. You know, you're one of 4 children. Is that correct?
3, one of 3. Yes.
One of 3 children. Tell us about your journey to the United States. You're the first one in your family, first generation college, right?
Yes, first generation. Yes. So let me tell you who Valeria is. Let me share that, Peter. So I was born in a very small rural town in Argentina, in a very hardworking family where, you know, I grew up, I was very good at school. I did very well at school. And my family always had that dream that I would be the first one to go to college, but they had no financial means to send me to college. So essentially, I really appreciate my parents for planting the seed of anything is possible, right? That's what happened. But, you know, it was a very small town. So I had to pave my way, finding the way to Buenos Aires, the capital city, getting a job to pay for my education. And it was with a lot of sacrifice. And I have to say, pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself. Not only, you know, when you're the first one, your parents have expectations. So you want to be up to their expectations, but also I had my own expectations. I really wanted to do well. And in a way, I wanted to run away a little bit from the experience that I had. I was bullied in high school, so it was not an easy path. It was not comfortable. So in a way, I wanted to run away from that trauma and open a new door of possibilities for me. And I did so through hard work and through studying very hard, through education. So education opened doors in my life. And I went to Universidad Católica Argentina. I got my graduation, became the first one in my family. I also stepped into corporate as the first one in my family. Peter, I had no idea how to dress for a corporate job, and no one around me could tell me. So wow. I had to learn the basics, how to dress for a professional position in a corporation. And I figured things out by looking, observing, learning from others, connecting with people. Then, ended up having a great job in Procter Gamble. And my husband and I decided to come to the US for an MBA. We applied to Dartmouth Tax School of Business. We were accepted. And we started a journey of saving and getting, essentially the little money we had saved. We put all of that into our education, and we took the risk of coming to the US with a student visa.
So it wasn't a grant, it wasn't a scholarship, it was hard work and grit that got you to Dartmouth.
Yes, and we had a little bit of a scholarship, but mostly was our own, money, and two huge student loans with a huge interest rate.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you come to America in 2002, you go to Dartmouth, and what happens? What happens to Valeria?
So Valeria, I have to say, has been on a journey of constant reinvention. And I have most of my life felt very uncomfortable because I've been in spaces where I never felt that I was fitting in.
Wow.
Yeah, in my small town, I was not fitting in. When I moved to Buenos Aires, I was not fitting in because I was from a small town. So I had a different language and, things were different. Coming to the US as an immigrant, I did not fit in. In a corporation, coming from a family of hardworking, grandparents and parents, I did not fit in. So it's been a journey of finding who I am and the constant reinvention. And I have to say that I found who I am by figuring out who I am not.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
That's powerful. Let me touch about something that you said, because it took me a long time to understand it. I'm one of 13 children. My family migrated to the United States when I was 10 years old. I often say that we were so poor I couldn't afford a dream. But I also did not fit in my environment. In fact, many a times I didn't even feel like I fit in my own household. I was different. I was outspoken, I was outgoing, I was hungry, I was a dreamer. And I want to make a point about this because I want our audience to get the most of our conversation. The reality is that a lot of times where we didn't fit in is because we have outgrown the space where we at.
Yes.
Okay. It's not that we're different. It's not that we're broken, and not that there's something wrong with us. Is that we have outgrown our space and we are not conforming to a comfortable zone. We want to step out of the imaginary boxes that have been created and that we have seen our ancestors live in for many generations, but we don't understand what's happening to us because we don't have the emotional intelligence, the maturity, the level of education or evolution within ourselves to be able to understand what's happening to us. But I think the first thing that we do is achieve. Okay. Yes. And once we achieve what we perceive as to be success, we are completely exhausted from that success. And we begin to look for the different part of ourselves to develop it. So tell us more about your journey and what was it? Did you hit that point? Did that happen to you?
Yeah. So thank you for mentioning the word hungry, because by being hungry, I pushed myself. I was hungry. I wanted more. I knew there was more for me. I knew something inside of me felt that more was possible. But how did I do it? Through adrenaline. So I pushed too hard. So in 2016, very recently, with 2 children, with a job, with a house, right? Marriage in the US, parents in Argentina, I hit a wall and I burned out. I pushed so hard and I was looking around my house, right? Thank God, the abundance, right? That I did not have growing up, that I achieved now as an adult, the titles, the universities I attended, all of that meant nothing when I hit the wall. Because when I hit the wall, life had no meaning. And I was asking myself, why am I even alive? I ended up manifesting a lot in the physical, but I had forgotten entirely about my mental health, my emotional well-being, and my spiritual connection. So that imbalance in different, when you have so much focus on one area, and this is what you talk about, the 5 dimensions, right?
Right.
And you don't take care of the others, it's not sustainable over time. You will end up hitting a wall.
Valeria, you have mentioned 3 words that stand out to me. And one of them was intentions. The other one was abundance. And the other one was manifestation. Okay. And these were words that I don't know about you, but when I was a young boy, I never heard those words before. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know what an intention was, you know, probably the way that I would set an intention would be my dad whipping out his belt and say, you better get this done or you're going to get a whipping. Right. Yes. And I certainly didn't see abundance. I used to think that abundance was being rich and being wealthy. Okay. Yes. And manifesting, well, that was most certainly not even a word that was part of our vocabulary. Yes. But let's talk about each one of those and let's kind of dissect them, because you started, you know, I set an intention and I manifested the intention. So let's talk about each one of those and what those mean to you, and how is it that our audience can apply that to their daily lives?
Excellent. And definitely I did not grow up with this vocabulary. After 2016, I became very intentional about finding my purpose and what keeps me motivated and alive, and what makes me wake up in the morning. I feel that I want to go out in the world and connect with people. And that's when I learned those words. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share. So the intention to me is the direction. The intention is the clear path ahead that determines which are my goals. The intention is what directs my life. So when things get tough, I remind myself, what is my intention? Am I living in my intention? And you know what my intention is? My intention in this life is to do my work, to fulfill my purpose while enjoying it and having fun. Because wow. I come from sacrifice. I come from hitting myself too hard to achieve. So I became very intentional about, I want to have a life that I will enjoy, and it is okay to have fun. We are, you know, it's okay to have a life, to make money and to have fun, to enjoy the process. So that's intention. Then talking about abundance, abundance is not just the money. I had the money part figured out and I was the most miserable person in the world. Abundance is living a full life in all levels. And that includes relationships, starting with a relationship with yourself. I had to figure out how to love myself. I learned that I didn't know who I was. I had to learn to be in silence, to connect with my essence, and to listen to what I really want in life. There was too much noise in my head. So that abundance of the relationships, definitely for us Hispanics, financial, right? Securing our financial present and future, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, a life that is balanced in all levels. That's abundance. And, you know, if you ask me, the one word that to me defines abundance is freedom. Freedom to choose what I want to do with my life. Wow. That's abundance at every moment.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. You know, Hispanics represent 20% of the US population, and they contribute $2.3 trillion to the economy. Yet they occupy less than 5% in leadership positions, and they're quite absent from most of the powerful decision-making positions and collective influence across the board, period, end of story. Why is it that a population as powerful as us in numbers and in consumerism, why is it that we occupy less than 5% in leadership positions? What is it culturally, social conditioning? Okay. What have we adopted as a result of where we come from and who we are that is preventing us from, you know, we have seen the African-American community really surpassed us in this area. Yes. In wealth, in positions of leadership, and boards and in many spaces. So why is it that Latinos with such a high consumer power, such a high buying power, numbers, there's a Latino that turns 18 years old every hour. That is powerful numbers. Why are we so behind the eight ball?
So, you know how, Peter, a lot of people talk about giving Latinos access and helping Latinos navigate new spaces. We need to take a step back and talk about mindset and those cultural limiting beliefs, because you and I and many listening, we are the first ones in our family to access new spaces. We are the first ones to step into college, to step into different professional spaces, and to access different opportunities. But when you go to those spaces and you carry with you a baggage, right? And by that baggage, I mean both cultural beliefs that are limiting, because we come from a culture of silence, we come from a culture of servitude, right? We were not trained to be leaders. We were trained and to serve others. That's a reality. And to be silent. Calladita te ves más bonita.
Right.
To be quiet, to not have a voice. But there is an underlying that we don't talk too much about in our community that holds us back, and is unhealed trauma, which, Peter, to your point, with the African-American community, I firmly believe that they really took off in such a powerful way because they had platforms and spaces and conversations that allow them to start healing that trauma that their generations went through. As Latinos, we carry trauma as immigrants. There is trauma. And children of immigrants who had to grow up in this country, being a voice and a translator for their parents, is traumatic.
Yeah, I absolutely. I remember a couple of circumstances that basically define me and the role that I wanted to play in this world. And my father was a blue collar worker. And I remember that we went to his foreman or boss, whatever you want to call him. And I was translating for my dad, and the guy just shut me down and told me to step outside and I'll handle this with your dad. And that I would hear him in the background screaming at my dad and really belittling my dad. And my dad walking out of that man's office with his head bowed down, Yes. And not only was I the translator, like many of the children, we become the parent. We become the parent. We embodied the parent. And as one of 13, I could see the level of hierarchy among my siblings, about my sisters. The older sister became the mother, the surrogate mother. She would become the, take care of everybody, make sure everybody got off to school, make sure. And it's a tremendous amount of responsibility to put up on a child that they're already leaving the trauma of leaving their country, their roots, their culture, their language. Okay. And having to jump into and adopt it into something completely new and different. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to expand a little bit on that from my personal experience.
Thank you for sharing that. And that reminds me also, a Latina woman that I interviewed for my book, Chris, had the same experience as you had. And she was shocked. Her childhood was all about seeing her parents, the authority figure of her parents, crumble in front of her. Right. Because they were treated in a very disrespectful way by the system. The system was not ready to embrace them. So that's the experience she had, and that marked her. And she became, as she told me, the protector of her parents, because her parents could not be able to communicate very well in English and they would have to go to a grocery store. She could practice with them the words that they could say in English so that they could communicate. Wow. So she became the mother, like teaching her parents how to speak English. And that's a lot of responsibility. Another one, Mariela, her father was in the construction company, and she used to have her father write down on a piece of paper the estimates for his clients, and she would translate them into English at 8 years old. So wow. Those are the experiences and the responsibilities. But then the other side of the coin is that really gives you the tools to navigate a world in which from a young age, you learn to read people. You learn to manage or to navigate difficult situations. It gives you a set of skills that kids who didn't have those experiences, how from very from challenges, you can find the blessing, the opportunity, the growth.
Right.
Our community affirmatively, our young, our youngest, by going through those experiences, they have tools that other kids do not have. And that's an advantage, untapped.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you with that. I call them, survival skills, right? That they become survival skills. But I also realized something when I carry the same survival skills that maybe served me when I was 10, 12, 14, 15, 16 years old. And I took those same survival skills as an adult. And I took them into the marriage, and I took them into the boardroom, into the relationship, and to the friendship, and to the partnerships. But they didn't work as well because I did not have the emotional intelligence to be able to transition, okay, through the process of emotional growth, emotional intelligence. I didn't have the skills. Even though I had achieved the financial success and I had achieved, I had not achieved abundance. I was, nouveau riche, right? I was, I felt unworthy. I felt, I felt out of place. The imposter syndrome kicked in. I would be the guy that would be sitting in a business meeting. I sit at the end of the table. So hopefully no one would ask me any questions. Many of times I walked into an event, to a party, and I had already had 2 or 3 cocktails just to calm down the nerves and the uneasiness that I was holding to. And I can assure you that there's still thousands, if not millions of people across the United States and in the world that operate the same way I operated from a very, very long time, because that is not something that we learn at home. That is not something that is taught to us in school. That is not something that is even mainstream. Okay. Yeah. You and I had a conversation in preparation for the interview, and we talked about the fact that, and you said it a minute ago, the African-American community has created platforms and spaces that allow them to heal. Okay. Yeah. Whether it's been through March or through Oprah and bringing together and creating a platform that allows stories to be told and to be shared and to be brought out in the open, or whether it's Tyler Perry, that through comedy, he's been able to soften the blow of the isms that happen in our culture. Okay. So why is it that our community, as strong as it is, has not transitioned into talking about these issues? Because they know they exist, and the younger generation knows that they exist. Now we are, I think more than ever, we know that what our ancestors did. Okay. Heck, we know what our government is doing right now. It's not working, right? It is, it's a plain sign. So, I mean, it's like the huge discovery, right? COVID has been the huge discovery. Why is it that we're not doing it? Why are we not talking about it? And what can we do to begin to make this a mainstream conversation?
Yes. So thank you for asking. And it's about coming from a culture of silence. And when you come from a culture of silence, you don't talk about what you feel inside, right? Something that came up really loud and clear in my research with 55 Latinas is like none of them knew that what they were feeling was the same thing the Latina next to her was feeling. Wow. Because we don't talk to each other. We don't talk to each other about, we're all about go, 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 the hunger for more. And we forget that we need to have those spaces, safe spaces, to connect with other Latinos and beyond, and to share from inside what we feel. Because what you felt, Peter, in those board meetings that you were talking about is exactly what I felt when I was thrown into these corporate meetings across the globe with leaders from all over the world. And I was sitting in that chair and I wanted to be swallowed by the earth. I wanted to disappear. I felt so uncomfortable and so self-conscious. And it's not only you and I, it's so many in our community, because no one told us growing up, you're going to go in a world that is different from the one you grew up with. And yes, it is okay to be uncomfortable. It will be, you will be uncomfortable in those places, and it's okay. You are not the only one. Connect with others, right? So to me, connection, the word connection is important for our community, particularly because instead of connecting with each other, we compete a lot with each other. We have this mindset of scarcity in our community, in addition to feeling inferior, what we spoke about, unworthy, inferior, imposter syndrome. We also have that competition among us, because when one chair opens, because there is this huge board table, right? 20 seats, not one Latino. When one chair opens, we all fight with each other to get that one chair, instead of collaborating in a way to open 2, 3, 4, 5 chairs on that table for Latinos, which is what will be fair representation, right? So that competition is what took us to be in silos, to not sharing. We believe that if I share too much of what I'm doing professionally, somebody will steal the idea and take the credit.
Right.
And we became protective of everything that goes on in our minds and our hearts. The silence, the silos.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reality is that although that is prevalent in the boardroom, that is not where it begins, right? That is not where it begins. So once it gets to the boardroom, it's almost a little bit too late. Okay.
Yes.
Those issues begin as a social conditioning, is the belief system that we inherit from our parents. I often say that we don't have business problems. We have personal problems that we bring into the business, right? I brought my shit into my corporations. I brought my shit into the business. I brought my shit into the marriage and the relationship, excuse my language. I brought my junk. I brought my trash with me, okay? I had to go through a period of purging, of cleansing, of revitalizing, of dumping, of getting rid of emptying everything that I have with me, changing a complete belief system, okay, and adopt a new belief system in myself in order to be able to feel worthy, okay?
Yes.
The reality is that it's very hard to like yourself when you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's very hard to know who you are when you live in a state of survival.
Yes.
Okay. And the reality is that our parents have taught us to, and you said it very early on in the conversation, we are not raised, or we're not taught to succeed. We are taught to serve. We're a generation, we're a culture of servitude. We're also not taught. We are not taught to survive, to try. We are taught to survive.
Yes.
How do we transition this? You cannot achieve external success if you're having an internal battle. Okay?
Exactly. Yes.
How do we balance that battle in your research?
Yes. So success, and this is what a Latina leader told me, and she went through the same journey we're describing for ourselves. She's an executive in Wall Street from Guatemala. And she said, success is an inside job. And I love that. You know how in our culture we have stigmas around meditation, around therapy, right? Terapia es para locos. Therapy is for crazy people. We all grew up with that. Guess what? If you don't make space to be in the silence, internal silence, what you said before, Peter, you had to get rid of the junk inside of you. You had to get rid of all that was taking space, mentally, emotional, spiritually, right? And when it manifests physically, it is already a huge load that you have been carrying probably for decades when it manifests in the physical body.
Right.
So what to do about it is you need to make space to be with you. And that was for me the hardest battle, to find the time to make a space in the silence, call it meditation, call it relaxation, breathing, listening to music, taking a walk in nature. I've tried everything you can imagine. But the only thing that worked is when I had that space to connect with my essence and to tune out, to release, I would say, the noise that I had in my head, all these voices from my ancestors, all these illusions of what I should be doing or not, or if I'm worthy or not, and connect with my essence, with my heart, what I call my soul. Wow. I really believe we are souls having a human experience.
Absolutely.
But it took, decluttering, doing therapy. I had to do therapy. I worked with coaches. I did meditation, and I still do, right? Find the time to connect with who you are. And it's proven by research that by doing breathing and meditation, you can, change the brain waves to get to those states where in more relaxation. And it's proven by research, when you are in those states of relaxation is when you can imprint a new belief system into your subconscious. So what I do, very practical, in addition to taking time for myself, taking care of myself in all levels, doing therapy, something very practical that anybody listening to this can do today, starting today, that will change their lives, because I have tried this with myself and with people that I coach, is before you go to bed, when you're relaxing, place in your head the image of you succeeding, that intention that I mentioned before, right? Doing my work, my purpose, and having fun. That's what I put in my head before going to bed. And I pair it up with an elevated emotion, gratitude, right? That's a big one for me, being grateful. So every night I do that, and I'm imprinting my unconscious with that image of what success means to me, my intention, and the emotion of gratitude, which makes that intention even more powerful. They work together, because if I have an intention and I look at that image and I have fear, it's defeating the exercise doesn't work.
Absolutely. You know, we are living in a period of what I call the great pause. The great pause.
Oh, yes.
We have an opportunity. You know, we had 2020 was a year where every single one of us, for the very first time, the world was paralyzed, right? Yes. We really began to look around us and see who we were or who was with us. Okay. And I think that for the Latino community is a pivotal point, because we have access to everything you and I are talking about. What people used to see as new age, as woo-woo, you know, neuroscience, neuroplasticity, epigenetics. We don't have to live with the brain that we have. We can change our mindset. We can change our belief system. We can break genetics that we had adopted from multi-generations. There's incredible science that has almost merged with philosophy, right? I think science finally agrees that a lot of what they used to dismiss as woo-woo, as crazy, as is part of science. It's part of who we are, right? But in the Latino community, which is something that I'm very passionate about, and I want to come right back into, you know, we realize that we have the baby boomer generation and older generations. We have the Gen Zers, we have the millennials. And we have the millennials and Jay Zers that have been completely exposed to the personal development space, you know, through the motivational speakers to transformational speakers. They see them, they hear them. They see people like Tony Robbins. They see people like Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, and a slew of incredible thought leaders that are out there dominating that space and really providing a positive message. But yet there's a missing link. There's a missing link there, because what they hear, what the younger generations hear, is completely contrary to what their parents and grandparents and ancestors believe. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
I also believe that the parents and grandparents right now, they're kind of looking back and saying, maybe all along we were wrong. Maybe all along what we were taught does not work. Okay. So how do we cross that bridge? How do we merge those generations? What do we do, Valeria?
I'm going to talk out of my personal experience, because when I started in this journey of meditation and spirituality, and yes, looking into high achievers and what they do, and there was a clash with my parents. They took it, you know, it was funny for them. Oh, you're into meditation. You know, there was like a not taken seriously as I was taking it. So what really helped me is to have compassion. Each of us is in a journey on this planet of learning, of growing, of manifesting our dreams and our purpose. Each one will have a different way to do so. And life presents us with the lessons that we need for further growth. I really believe that. So when I look into my parents, you know, I feel compassion. They had a different experience. Our mindset, not only ours, our parents, is influenced by, I would say, centuries of generations who did not have access to what we have access to. because by the time you're in puberty, your mindset is quite set. It can be changed, but the belief system, you need to be aware of what runs you because it's quite set by the time you're in puberty. So that means that, we carry centuries of these limiting beliefs in our culture, right? So to me, having compassion is the first step. Understanding that they are victims of victims of victims of victims in a way, in the right use of the word.
Right.
Not, so everybody, when I look at my parents and my grandparents, I'm like, thank you. You did the best that you could with the information you had. And I'm grateful that I have access to other information and I will maximize and leverage that for my own journey and my own personal growth. And it's in each person's ability and willingness to take the information or not. It's available out there. But compassion to me has really helped me to heal that relationship with my parents and grandparents and so on.
I love that. And thank you for making that clarification, because the reality is, and I'm going to share my personal experience with my parents, being one of 13 children, seeing a lot of struggle and feeling the struggle as a young boy. I created a certain amount of resentment towards my parents, me being self-aware, and realizing I would often think, why would they have 13 children? They could have had me, just me by myself, and life would have been perfect, right? That was a selfish thought. But the reality is that my parents could only give me what they knew, what they had, what was available to them. And our times have definitely changed. We receive in a day almost 50,000 sound bites of information. Okay. Yes. In a week, we receive what many of our parents and grandparents used to receive in an entire lifetime. Okay. As far as information. So we have an incredible amount of information. I think there's something else that has happened. I think that the new sciences and the merging of science and philosophy together has allowed us to become multisensory individuals, where we are not only defined by the five senses. Okay. Now we have the intuition. Now we have the gut feeling, the sense. Okay. Now we realize that there's an actual connection between us and the energy of the universe, right? Yes. That is a spirituality, the direct connection of our energy to the energy of the universe. And that may sound woo-woo to some people in my audience, and they may think I'm crazy, but it's something that is real and it's available to you. Okay.
Yes.
If we talked about intentions very early on at the beginning, the reality is that when you set an intention, you're focusing your intention, you do your affirmations, and you work in your mission and your passion and your vision, everything with the universe, if it's for the benefit of the whole, it aligns with you. It carries you. You find your way, you find your path. There are going to be obstacles that come along the way, but in reality is when you are, in my opinion today, Valeria, what I have learned that when I tend back to those five pillars, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, and the financial, I still operate from a state of being present and in the now. I don't no longer survive. I am thriving. I am floating. Okay. I operate from a state of flow. I operate from a single state of consciousness. I don't time travel between consciousness and subconscious. I control my destiny to a certain degree because I'm able to be here in the present and now, see with clarity and see with possibilities. And the reality is that you have been able to achieve that. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges and adversity. It means that you have challenges and adversity, but you face them with hope, strength, and faith.
Definitely. And what you said about living in the present, let me add something there. It took me a while to understand what living in the now means. And to me, it meant to be fully present means that you are not in the past, because the past usually brings regrets. And you are not in the future because the future brings worry or anxiety.
Absolutely.
So, you know how I said before, I figured out who I am by figuring out who I am not?
Right.
I figured out that I'm in the now when I know that I'm not in regret and I'm not in anxiety.
Love it.
When I'm at peace, and that's when I'm at my best self, everything is possible. And I can focus my creative energy towards manifesting what I really want when I'm in that moment of now.
I love it. Let's talk about Uncolonized Latinas, Transforming Our Mindset and Rising Together, your book that you released this week. Tell us a little bit about it and tell us where our audience can find it and what can we do to support you.
Thank you so much, Peter. So the audience can find the book in Amazon. They can also visit my website, uncolonizedlatinas.com, or in Instagram, Valeria Aloe _author. So the book is written for Latinas and Hispanics. And, you know, I just got a beautiful email from an African-American woman who read my book and found huge identification with the experiences there. So the book is written for Hispanics who step into spaces, who are the first ones in their families, like us, to step into spaces, professional spaces and college, feeling unworthy, lacking, right? Having all this abundant, the scarcity mindset, colorism, which is a huge disease in our Hispanic community, competition. So the book dissects and decodes all of those and then goes into what do we do about it? How do we work first with myself, becoming absolutely responsible for my life, taking charge of my life, healing myself. And then how, once I know who I am, which is what you said, Peter, once you know who you are, you need to show up in the world as you are. And that makes you so successful. So when you love yourself, everybody will fall in love with you. So it's like, what do you do once you do the inside work? How do you show up in the world? How do you build your brand? That's what people call brand building. How do you show up? And also, how do you build networks within and importantly, outside the Hispanic community? Be assertive, build those relationships. This is what we're doing right now. We connected through an email, I think that was.
Absolutely.
That's relationship building, taking the risk. And I have in my, one of my goals is to contact 2 new people every single day. That's building networks. And so the book gives you a roadmap because we were not taught to do the inner work. We were not taught how to build a network. The book compiles the stories of Latinas who successfully did so.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
So that people who really have that roadmap and learn from those experiences because we have not shared them enough. So in a way, the book breaks through that culture of silence.
I love it. I love it. And I love something that you said a minute ago. When you love yourself, the whole world falls in love with you. And absolutely, what a truthful, beautiful statement that is. And the reality is that everything that we have and that we see in others is already in us. We just need to develop it. We need to bring it out to shine. We need to bring it and expose it. Valeria Aloe, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, for having me. And thank you for the work you do. It's extremely valuable for our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much.